So coming back to the Book of Five Rings. So the first segment is about the foundation of strategy. And what I like about this is that he uses like fire, water, air, like it's almost like Avatar. So it's more easy to remember. So the first part is the ground book. And the key concept in the ground book is establishing a solid foundation in both your skills and mindset. So it's where Musashi puts out that the principle that every warrior or anyone seeking success must master before moving forward. And one of the quotes he says is like, the primary thing when you take a sword in your hands is your intention to cut the enemy, whatever the means are, which is quite brutal. But I guess what he's trying to emphasize on that is the intent. So like with Musashi, before he entered any battle, he always had a clear goal of what he wants to achieve. And he will do anything it is to be able to get to that goal. And so he's saying like whether you're a warrior or aiming to win in a battle or a business person striving to outsmart or outmaneuver your competition, success starts with the clarity of purpose. So having an end in mind rather than just going there with directionless. Otherwise you would be defeated by your enemy. So it's like this focus on direct, decisive action can be applied to obviously like setting goals in your life. And I think what he's really saying here is just starting with a clear intention and with an end in mind of what you're trying to achieve rather than adapting all the time. I mean, obviously there's going to be things that you don't see coming, but the goal doesn't change. Like you're still going to strive to get towards that and do whatever you need to get to that. So having a strong sense of objective and yeah, because if you go in there directionless, then you're just aimlessly, as he says, like you're swinging a sword against your enemy.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, like it's like the sword is the tools and resources you have, and your intent is to use those tools and resources to reach the goal, which is killing the enemy in this case. But quite brutal.
Yeah.
We have worded it a bit different probably. But no, you're right. I think like if we think about what we've got access to these days in terms of information, tools, resources, internet, contacts, networks, etc., you got all these abundant things at your peril. Like you've got it in your hands, right? And so, like, what are you doing about it, right? Because you can have all the tools and resources. You can have, and this is where businesses also mess up as well, where they overhire people, but they don't actually understand what they need those people for and what the clear goal of what they're trying to achieve is. But sometimes they don't go with enough resources because the goal is too big, so they're under resourced, right? So it's interesting because that clear goal or that clear what you're trying to achieve is so important in anything that you do because it sets you up for what you actually do about it. It's like a lot of people with sort of like investment properties or wealth. It goes back to that idea. Like, what is your goal at the end of this? And a lot of people can't answer that. And if you can't really answer what your goal is with your wealth or what you want to achieve, you're always going to be looking for more. And you actually don't use your resources and what you have, present with you in a efficient way. You just mindlessly put yourself into a mindset of greed and just go, oh, I just want more. But you never actually understand why you want more. So it's actually pretty interesting. Like it's a good way he says that master the principles, establishing a solid foundation by setting clear goals and what you want with clear intention is so important before you go ahead with it.
Yeah, and then yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, at some point, when you go through, and the thing is, well, in this day and age, we have an abundance of like information. It's so easy to get lost and lose your sanity of all these little like these tools and things that you come across. You can forever go in this state of like just planning and all these things, but you never execute anything because you're just always adapting to whatever comes your way. And I know like people say like I go with the flow type of thing. But I think with going with the flow, at some point that you're going to be thrown in like the middle of the ocean, in the Pacific Ocean. How are you going to navigate around that? You'd be like, you'd be drowned in like all of this with so much information, everything that you just pretty much lose yourself. You lose your sanity. So I think it's very important. Like I completely agree. Like having an end in mind. And even though, once you know the end, it doesn't matter what comes your way. You just find a way to get there. And I feel like that's what all these successful entrepreneurs or even people like doing whatever they do that are at a state of content and fulfillment are because they had an end in mind of like what it is. And obviously like the thing is you're going to always be improving, but like each of their goals that they've set before getting there was like always like it was quite clear and it's quite measurable and everything like that. I think they call it SMART goals or something.
Yeah, specific, measurable, attainable, actions.
Realistic and time bound.
Actions, yeah, realistic.
Yeah.
Time bound, yep, smart.
Yeah, so those types of things, and yeah, the more clarity and purpose you have in whatever you're trying to achieve, the better. Like, then when the obstacles come or the adversities, it won't maneuver you from the path. It's like the example of like the North Star. It's like, you know, you can be in a ship, and your goal is to get to some location or something, or yeah, let's just say you're in a ship and you're lost, and you lost your navigation. Like there's like waves and stuff crashing, and you're misguided in your directionless. And that's would you say like, oh, like let's just go with the flow? Like if you go with the flow, you're gonna get lost even more. So it's like as long as you have like a North Star which can guide you to a place that you want to get to, then it doesn't matter like what happens along the way. As long as you follow the North Star, you'll get to your destination. So I think just having that North Star, like having whatever your goal is so clear that it's like the North Star no matter how bad the chaos is.
Yeah, I came across this sort of not epiphany, but, you know, questioning my development, like, you know, my current role. Like it was a sort of question, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And I couldn't answer that question at all, you know, and it was sort of a moment in my view that, damn, like I've actually got to sit back and actually think critically where I want to be, where I want to go. And that actually helped me repurpose a lot of things on how I approach things in the next 3 months. Like I was in a go with the flow state for like a chunk, and that doesn't help your development or what you want out of your career or your life. You know, going with the flow, you know, it can help if you know where you're, like you said, like if you know where you're going, because sometimes that flow will take you towards that, but along the way you've got to know a bit of navigating. You know, you've got to understand if that flow is taking you to the right place, you know, or is it just a strong current that's ripping you out of your path, right? And if that's the case, then you've got to get back into that flow per se. So there's a moment where I had to sit back and think, and then write down actually SMART goals for myself, interestingly enough, you know, and what I actually want to work on in the next 3 months to get where I want to be. So
no, I'm glad that you did that, because
you
then
have to.
you have to do that. And you know what? It's like so uncommon, because these days, and I think the reason why we don't do it is because we're in the busy trap.
Yep.
It's like you're busy today because you're busy yesterday, you're busy and you're busy tomorrow because you're busy today. So you never give yourself a bit of space and time to just reflect and think. Like even if it's like 10, 15, 30 minutes, just giving that time to just really think, am I on the right track of where I want to be or where I want to get to? Am I doing the right things? Or what is my end, like what is my end in plan with whatever I'm trying to do? And how am I getting there? Like just giving yourself space and time. I don't think we do that enough.
No, we don't.
Because when you go on social media, everyone says like hustle, like work 24/7. Like what are you up?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They talk like that language. It's like, dude, you can just keep doing that, but like, are you really getting to where you want to be? Like, because at some point it'll burn you out, and you'll be in a position where you're like the most vulnerable because you're just burnt out, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're not motivated anymore. At some point, it exhausts you. So it's like, but if you're going with what your end is in mind and in your plan, or then it doesn't matter. Like it won't burn you out in that way, and you have that purpose that will keep you pushing through the difficult times. So yeah, it's good that you did that.
I needed to. It was important.
Yeah. So that's the ground basically. So having the clear intention and objective. Now it's like the adaptability. So it's the water book segment. So the water book focuses on the importance of flexibility, and both mentally and physically. So he uses like the metaphor of water. It's just interesting how a lot of East Asian like philosophy always uses water as like it's such a common theme. Bruce Lee, be like water, same thing. They use it a lot. And I think it's like, because at the end of the day, water can sort of change its shape based on what it's contained in. Like if you put water in a glass, it will change its and morph its shape to be in that glass, and so on and so forth. So he's saying, similarly, like a warrior must be adaptable in combat as we must be in life as well. And one of his quotes is like, in strategy, it is important to see distant things as if they were close and to take a distance view of close things.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like taking a step back.
Yeah, basically, like I think you mentioned to me like the elephant analogy, or someone told me about the elephant analogy, which is like sometimes when you solve problems, we're looking at the elephant's like trunk or foot because we're so close to it. But if you take a step back, you can see the elephant, like the bigger picture as a whole. It's just like looking at problems from an outer perspective and zoomed out, rather than being so closed in and focused in a specific segment of it. So I think like with this one, what he's trying to say is like that elephant analogy, and just trying to expand like your perspective about things. And to be a successful strategist, you have to be able to both zoom out in the immediate situation and pull back to the broader situation or the broader picture of what you're solving, or broader problem. And that way you can, and then he said like about balancing focus with a wide ranging awareness. And he's saying like in the modern terms, this could be like managing both the day-to-day operations of a project and also looking at the long term from what you're achieving in the months or in quarters or years and etc. So successful people can see how small actionable actions can contribute to the bigger picture and vice versa. So that's what he was emphasizing on perspective.
Yeah, I think adaptability is also, and he might touch on this, but it's like, you know, being put in the most chaotic situations and seeing how you deal with it. You know, like, do you still deal with problems the same way you would if you had the time to think about it, or do you deal with things in a more chaotic mind frame? Because the biggest thing, like I've learned so far, is, you know, if you've got really tight deadlines on something, like you've got to get things done in a very limited amount of time, but it's a big chunk of work. That analogy of just taking a step back and understanding what are you trying to achieve from this is like so helpful, because it helps you like really plan things out. But I think I tend to see things of adaptability as, you know, how well are you adaptable with people in different crowds? You know, are you like, if you sit with a bunch of, let's say, you know, sit with older people, the way you interact with them is going to be very different how you interact with your boys. You know, do you still bring that level of maturity, that level of respect with people, or do you just carry on the same way as you would with other people, right? That's like one. So people managing, or how do you present yourself to people? But the second one, you know, are you able to go into a chaotic situation and for a moment think calmly or think of things indifferently? You know, that's so important to do, because in a chaotic environment, everyone's just got the same mind frame of chaos. That's the main frame at that point, is just, it's chaotic. There's a lot going on. How do we, like, there's no stability. So are you able to bring that stability, or, you know, bring that calmness? Or, you know, are you the person that looks at, you know, as you said, the elephant from a close, or do you take a step back and look at the elephant as a whole? So that's the second one. Third one with adaptability, I find is, this one's a bit of an interesting one, but the way I think of adaptability is like, you know, there's people managing, there's environments, but yourself as well. So, you know, are you always in a mindset of, you know, like, are you able to adapt? Are you able to regulate your emotions? Is a big one, right? If you've had a bad start to a day, are you able to just let that go and adapt to a more positive mind frame? If not, then you've got to learn how to regulate your emotions, because a lot of the ways we react to things, or we do things, is actually based on our emotions and our attitude towards it. You could be given a very hard task, but if your frame of mind or your attitude towards it straight away is, oh, it's too hard, it's too difficult, I can't do this, and you're very negative about it, and you start pointing fingers and you don't know how to adapt it, and you just start saying, oh, this person's telling me to go speak to that person, that's saying that, I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. You know, sometimes when you're getting the runaround from people, you actually have to understand, why are they sending you to the other person? Why are you getting the runaround? It could be you not asking the right questions with the people, you know? So I think like managing, like how do you present yourself to other people in different groups, adapting to that. How do you look at problems or in a chaotic frame, like a chaotic environment, and vice versa? Are you able to go from a chaotic environment to a calm environment and actually, you know, instead of being so quick and, you know, just being so frantic in your thinking, are you actually able to adapt to a more calm mindset? If not, then that's a problem, because now you're bringing that chaos into other people into that calm environment. And then thirdly, regulating your emotions. Those are like really key things to someone that can adapt. If you can demonstrate those three, you can adapt in any situation. I feel
that's like a very like stoic type of mindset, to be honest. Like it's pretty, like as in like, I think it's some things that you need to be able to be someone who's adaptable. Because if you focus on just like the negative and the chaos itself, and you drown yourself in that, then you're just putting yourself as like the sort of victim in that situation. And you're giving a lot of your power away to other people, especially when you're pointing fingers at people. It's like the person that you're pointing the finger at is someone you're saying, okay, you have all the power to control me. Like when you literally do that, because based upon whatever they do, it affects you. Whereas if you look at like, and I like what you've said as well. And another big thing that I sort of come to realize is like, there's things that are not in your control and you might influence behavior. So you give your opinion or you give your thoughts about it, but it's realized it's not in your control. But what is in your control? It's like your emotions, your ability to react, and your thoughts. That's a very big one as well. Like you only have control over what you can think and then that translates later on into like action and a lot of other things. So I think that's a very important thing, like realizing what you have in control in those moments of chaos and being able to regulate your emotions and just get what needs to get done essentially at that moment of time.
Yeah, it's so important. Like it's actually surprising how many people can't adapt to things falling apart, or things that are about to fall apart, or just things that could fall apart, you know, like, and what I mean by that is an environment that's just frantic, you know, entrepreneurship, businesses, corporate work, whatever you do, you are going to go through those moments. Like it's inevitable. Even that aside, like I remember working at Woolworths and like, you know, you'd have your Monday to Fridays were less busy, right? Not shocking. Your Saturday, Sundays are busy, right? Because you know, people have days off. That's when they shop. That's when they come in.
Especially during the holiday season.
Yeah. So this is what I was going to get to. Yeah. Holiday season. Easter comes around. Monday to Sunday is just chaotic. You know, like I did my first Christmas Eve when I was 16 and it was packed, man. Like it was people, like I'd never seen that many people in a shop ever in my life, you know? And that was a big learning for me. I was like, wow, like how do we put things out and they just get sold out. And we're just restocking the same thing over and over again. But it's like, you start to realize like, yeah, you might think of it as just retail or, you know, working at fast food and it gets really busy from a calm environment thing. How do you actually approach that? Are you able to regulate your emotions, approach it the right way? Are you like, how do you treat the people around you during those moments? Are you still that calm, lovely person, or do you change your personality to become very bitter and annoyed and angry at how busy it is? You know, are you looking at, you know, if you've got to make 10 burgers in 2 minutes, let's say, for example, I could be wrong. I've never worked at fast food in my life. I've worked at supermarkets though. So I could probably use this, but if I have to I'll use supermarkets, for example. If I have to stock 3 cages of things in the next hour because things need to get out, am I actually thinking of the bigger picture, like of how to approach it? You know, so and these are like things that you don't have to actively sit down and write about. It's just things that it's just subconscious in your mind that am I approaching this the right way? And am I able to get this done in what I'm expected to? And like sometimes things are unrealistic to get done. So then you have to it goes back to managing your relationship with people. Like how do you set that expectation with people? Like, all right, this is not possible to do in an hour. You need to give me more time because of X, Y, and Z, you know? So it's not like, it's so important to be able to just bring a positive self, whatever the situation is.
Yeah, no, that's a good example. And I remember those chaotic times of being able to like.
Oh, you worked at supermarkets.
Yeah, I
as well,
worked
eh?
at
Or
Woolies and just the different departments. So I was like, got a bit of experience
you
there.
know
So
how busy it gets, eh?
it does. Yeah.
Weekends
I
and
also worked at David Jones as well.
oh,
So,
nice.
so I understand like what you mean by that. So,
Dave Jones. No, I
But-
just yeah,
yeah.
and you know what? Like, those are the places where you learn a lot about dealing with people and how do you deal with yourself. Like, you learn a lot about yourself. You know, when you start work at 16. Like, I'm saying this at 25. There are things that I learned at 16 at Woolworths that I still carry with me and I still look back to. It might be shocking. Like, it might be like, oh, like, why? It's like, well, it goes back to like first principles. Like, those were the foundations that set me up, you know? So you've got to think about that, you know?
Yeah, especially like with interpersonal skills and stuff. Like that's
100%.
transferable. It's gonna
Yeah.
You're always going to be dealing with people unless you work in robots or something or machines. But
Yeah.
exactly. So that's definitely a very important part of it. And before moving on to the next one, I did want to talk about like Bruce Lee's interpretation of like Be Like Water.
Yeah.
Because I do remember reading and like understanding what he was trying to say. And I think the way he explains Be Like Water is like being a balance between of being assertive and submissive. And so what he means is like, water can be like a river, or sorry, it can be calm like an ocean, but it can also be you can be as chaotic as a tsunami.
Right.
And he's like, there are moments where in life you have to be assertive. So you have to stand for yourself. You have to stand your ground when you're dealing with people that are disrespectful, but doing it in a very professional and, regulated way rather than it becoming like a brawl out fight. So there are moments where you need to be assertive, but there are also moments where you need to submit. Like you need to be able to have the humility to be like, look, I actually don't have enough information of this. Maybe I should ask someone else who has better information knowledge than me to be able to give you better understanding. Or knowing like moments where you're wrong. Like you have to sort of let go of your ego and be like, okay, I'm actually in the wrong here. Like even with dealing with customers, like I think I probably might have stuffed up a few times with customers' orders.
It happens all the
And
time.
it happens. And I was just like, look, I messed up and look,
Yeah.
I'll fix
Dude,
it up for you.
I've messed
Yeah.
up in
So
like in my current role, I've messed up, and it's not a big deal. Like in the grand scheme of things, it might not be, it's not a big deal, but you're right. It's like, how quickly are you able to just admit it and just find a solution? Like it's a lot better to go to your boss and go, hey, look, this is a mistake I made. It was my error. I didn't really think about from this perspective, but I'm working with this person to get it fixed. That goes a long way than just, oh, I don't know what happened. I think this person screwed up, blah, blah, blah. Like accountability goes a long way. And it builds trust.
continuing on, I think it's very important to be able to have that humility. And obviously, like if you're able to admit it and be honest with your boss and things, it builds honest and just trust and integrity as a person as well, which is very important, to be honest. Because then I think it actually makes you more, I would say, people able to relate to you more. Like it makes you actually stand out more as a leader. Like I think the leaders that are most respected, which we talked about, is the ones that can admit humility. Sometimes they make mistakes, and then obviously they got to be professional about disclosing what type of mistakes they are. But them being able to show that vulnerable state sometimes is something that most people become more attracted to. Then they'd be like, oh, they're not just some sort of idol like who's like God complex something. They're also imperfect themselves and they make mistakes, and it makes the culture of the entire, I'd say, of the workplace also more of like integrity, being more honest rather than just hiding things.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I also think like part of adaptability, now that you've made me think there, is the trust and integrity with people. Like being able to build trust with someone up front straight away goes a long way. And building trust, I think, doesn't mean like you've got to, tell them a secret and then go like, oh, look, you tell me your secret and I won't tell her what they. It's not that. Like trust can come in a lot of different forms. But I think it comes down to how you present yourself, like authenticity. Are you actually authentic? Or are you someone that speaks to, and of course you've got to speak to higher ups and different people at a certain level, but how you present yourself to everyone, like, is it authentic? Does it come off authentic? Like, are you able to, like, it's treating a CEO and a cleaner the same way, there's this, like, there shouldn't be, in terms of when I say treating them the same way, openly, being able to say hi to them, how's their day, and moving on from that, for example, right? Like not looking at a cleaner and go, oh, you're just a cleaner, I'm not going to speak to you. Or your CEO, like, oh, I shouldn't speak to you, I should be very careful about what I say. Like a lot of times people are just tired of that because there's no trust. You don't have integrity at that point. But you're right. I think the ego, letting go of your ego, is such a simple thing to let go of your ego, but it's such a hard thing to do for a lot of people. It's next to impossible for people, so it goes back to those mum influences. Look at my child. Let go of your ego, you idiot. Anyways, let me not rant about that.
But yeah,
we'll wrap up here.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into the other segments just so that we don't
the last thing we want is that.
Sweet. Anyways, good chat. We'll chat soon.